Welcome to Life After, a podcast for women to take you from feeling like you're just surviving to thriving, to creating a life you really love. Expect to discover tips and tricks to get there. Each episode will have actionable steps to empower you to make changes. I started this podcast because I've been through it all, from getting out of a marriage with a narcissist to completely rebuilding my life. And now I'm on a mission to help you too. You can change your life. It's absolutely possible. Unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry, all forms of fear are caused by too much future and not enough presence. Eckhart Tolle. We must build dikes of courage to hold back the flood of fear. Martin Luther King Jr. The more you study delight, the more delight is there to study. I felt my life to be more full of delight, not without sorrow or fear or pain or loss, but more full of delight. Ross Gay. In the stillness of the quiet, if we listen, we can hear the whisper of the heart giving strength to weakness, courage to fear, hope to despair. Howard Thurman. In this episode, we are going to chat about how your mindset can be impacted by limiting beliefs, fear, and anxiety, and more importantly, what you can do to change that. One of the things I really love about the Ross Gay quote is the reminder that we have the choice about our mindset, and also that what we focus on is what we are going to see and react to most in our lives. What we are focusing on is what we give most of our attention to. These two concepts are going to be a big influence on our mindset topics today. Limiting beliefs can impact us for a long time in ways that we don't even really realize. Until we start paying attention to the messages we're sending ourselves and get really curious about what's happening, those limiting beliefs can affect us for an indefinite period of time. Limiting beliefs are a negative thought or a state of mind that you think is the absolute truth. Limiting beliefs stop you from doing certain things, like preventing you from taking risks or achieving your goals or fully realizing your potential. Limiting beliefs are a self-imposed barrier that holds you back from growth and opportunity, and they often stem from your past experiences. I took these definitions just from Googling limiting belief, and I want you to notice some key words. Are you finding yourself struggling in a relationship and wondering if you're dealing with a narcissist? You're not alone, and I've got a resource that can help. Get my 5 questions to confirm you're not the problem. This helps you identify the emotions associated with being in a controlling relationship. Just head over to locatecoaching.com/free gift and take the first step toward clarity and confidence in your relationships. Absolute truth. Our limiting beliefs make us believe that what we are saying is absolutely true. Instead, we have to actively question them. We have to say, is this really true? And if it's not, then we have to find the alternative. The next one is fully realizing your potential. We can't fully realize our full potential when we're sending our brains negative messages about ourselves. That's why they're limiting. This is where being able to challenge and change those limiting beliefs is so important to our mindset. It opens up a world of possibilities for us. The next one I want you to consider is self imposed. Our limiting beliefs are self imposed, which means we can change them. We absolutely have the ability to change our beliefs, stop the negative messages, and choose to shift our mindset 100%. And the final one I want you to think about is past experiences. Remember, often the little voices in our head don't originate as our voice. It's something that someone else said or did to us, and we just took it on as our own voice over time. When you recognize that, it becomes much easier to undo the willingness to keep hearing that voice. What messages do you keep hearing that aren't really yours? Challenge that. What can you stop telling yourself? What limiting beliefs can you let go of in this way? Now that we know exactly how damaging those limiting beliefs can be, what can we do about them? It can take some time to get over your limiting beliefs, and it's definitely worth taking the time to do so. Your life is so much richer when you aren't constantly beating yourself up and you can actually focus on what you want and achieving your dreams. I've told this story before, but it's worth repeating. The math story, right? When I was an eighth grader, I think I was an eighth grader, might have been a seventh grader. I had a math teacher tell me I would never be better than a B student in math. And you know what? I wasn't ever again better than a B student in math. One single statement created a limiting belief for me that lasted for decades, literally decades. And it wasn't until I was in grad school and was taking statistics for it was the third time that I finally broke that limiting belief, right? It's taken me almost a lifetime to realize that that one sentence from one teacher didn't warrant the power that I gave to it for all those years. Now, I certainly was never going to become a mathematician. That was never in the cards for me, nor did I want it to be. However, just repeating that same story, what other opportunities might have I missed out on when I extrapolated the idea that I wasn't good at math? How many times did I then allow myself to let that slide, let that limiting belief slide into something else that I wasn't good at, or that when it's hard, it's okay to quit or to stop or to give up? Obviously, I certainly never tracked those thoughts, but I can absolutely tell you that just having the overall negativity never did me any good. And absolutely, it's not doing you any good either. So I encourage you to critically think about those things that you're telling yourself, even if they feel insignificant, even if it feels like it's not that big of a deal. Oh, I'm not that good at math. Even the little limiting beliefs, they're stacking up for a big impact in your brain. One way to get rid of your limiting beliefs is to do what I did in the math case. Challenge it. Challenge it, challenge it, challenge it. Question where it came from, and then find evidence that it isn't true and simply release it. For some limiting beliefs, it really can be this easy. For others, it may take a little more effort. In those cases, you'll still want to identify the limiting belief. Where did it come from? Is it my voice? If it's not my voice, whose voice was it? Where did it generate? Where did it originate? And then challenge it. And then you'll adopt a new belief in its place. What do you want that belief to be instead? So let's say you're always saying, even in passing, how stupid it was that you did something. You are still sending your brain the message that you're stupid, because what you tell your brain is what your brain believes. And the reticular activating system in your brain, it doesn't care how you say it or what you mean when you say it. It's taking you literally. So in that case, your brain is getting the message that you're stupid. Even if you think you're kidding, it's your brain is accepting that you think you're stupid. So what do you want to replace it with? I actually really pay attention to language. I think language is really important, how we use language, what we say, how we say it. And so I kind of went through this exercise myself. And when you think about it, in our society, we often use that statement or some iteration of it quite colloquially. That was stupid. I'm so stupid, right? We use the word stupid a lot in our language. And I don't want to be sending my brain that message. I don't want to be sending anybody's brain that message, right? So instead of using the word stupid, I've replaced it with silly. And even when I start to say, oh, that was stupid, I catch myself and replace it. Oh, no, that was silly. So while this example may seem, well, silly, you get the point. We can change the message we're sending to our brain and shift a limiting belief, or even just shift something that might feel kind of negative. Going deeper into the process of changing your limiting beliefs, once you've challenged them, you're reframing what you believe. And when you're reframing that, then you're using action in two different ways. The first way that you're using action is that you're taking the action to change the limiting belief, like my stupid to silly example. The second way that you're using action is that you're starting to practice the new belief. And when you practice the new belief, then your new actions are going to follow. And then your life really starts to change. This is where it gets really good. When you start to see that transformation in your life and how you live based upon your new beliefs that are not so limiting, what happens from there? Finally, as it relates to limiting beliefs, I follow Denise Duffield Thomas, and in her work, she incorporates forgiveness work and EFT, emotional freedom techniques. You might know this otherwise known as tapping, as part of working through limiting beliefs. She has a website, denisedt.com, and she's got lots of free content. So you can always go there and check her out. I really love using these two modalities. They're straightforward, they're easy to do, and with consistency, you see results. So as I said, she has lots of free content. She also has a paid program, which I'm a part of, and I really enjoy following her and going through her exercises. Most of her work relates to money mindset, but one of the really beautiful things about what she does is you can extrapolate it out to other areas in your life. So her contact, how to reach her website, I'll put that in the show notes. All right, so another way that our mindset can be significantly impacted is through fear and anxiety. You know, fear can stop us dead in our tracks. And like limiting beliefs, we often don't even know that it's fear, right? Especially if you're living in survivor mode. of any kind, if you've spent any part of your life living in survivor mode, fear just becomes an undercurrent of your life that you don't even realize is there. You might It becomes really hard to recognize that fear is a part of how you're living. And one of the ways I've learned to recognize fear is the resistance of participating in life events, the resistance to move forward with something, to try something new, to take an opportunity. So, if any of these resistances sound familiar to you, consider that fear may be a factor in what's happening to you in how you're living. Now, it may not be, right? Obviously, sometimes we just, depending upon your personality or what's going on in your life, you may just be slow to start something new. That could be the case too. But if you find that these things consistently show up, that you're making excuses, that you might want to delve a little deeper and really try to understand what it is that's happening. And you might find that fear is a theme that you're seeing show up. So once we kind of see or understand that fear is what's affecting us, we can actually do something about it, right? And facing our fears uses a lot of the tips and tricks that we already know work for shifting our mindset, just in a slightly different way. I took the next tips that we're going to talk about, these next suggestions, from an article from Real Life Counseling, and I'll put the link to the article in the show notes. But these suggestions are: you can focus on your breathing. Know that when we're taking really quick, short breaths, it can cause negative reactions in our bodies. And when we're feeling fear or anxiety, breathing deeply compels our body to physically calm itself. So I talked a couple episodes ago that breathing would be a theme we'd keep coming back to this season. And I gave you a couple, three or four different examples of ways to breathe. The key here, both then in that episode and here, is to make sure that your exhale is longer than your inhale. The next suggestion that this article gave was to journal or to write. Y'all know that journaling is not my favorite word, so write. And as it relates specifically to this topic of fear, is to keep track of how you're feeling or experiencing your fear for a few weeks and what patterns emerge. What is happening in your body when you're feeling the fear? Are you more fearful in the morning or in the evening? How are you reacting when your fears arise? And then writing the details down can really help demystify your fears, which makes them a lot more manageable. I don't know. I don't think I've ever really talked about this too much on the podcast, but I had a terrible fear of snakes. And I've done a lot of work on this, mostly because since we've moved into this house, my yard is full of snakes, garter snakes. And anybody that I've ever told this story to says, "Why are you afraid? They're so harmless." Well, it doesn't matter. I was traumatized as a kid by a neighborhood kid with garter snakes. And so that's always been what my fear's been from, is specifically garter snakes. So I've spent a lot of time over the last few years really, really focusing on this fear. And particularly when everybody tells you it's ridiculous, you're kind of like, well, maybe I should rethink this, right? And so I've spent so much time trying to reframe this fear. And really, when I'm in the yard, talking myself through it and breathing and using these techniques. I actually use all of these techniques that I share with you guys regularly. And I've come to a place, snakes are very revered in many ways. And spiritually aligned with change and transformation and things that I believe in, really deeply. And so I've spent a lot of time reframing this idea of why do I have this fear of something that otherwise would um I would never have a fear of. And again, it links back to a trauma that I had as a kid. And so I'm sharing this with you, and I'm kind of doing it on the fly, to tell you that this journal writing process is a great thing to do. And you can also process these things over time, just mentally processing, right? The writing and the journaling will help you go back and revisit it. But you can reframe a fear, like my fear of snakes, and have success becoming less afraid and realizing that you don't have to be at the mercy of that fear for for your lifetime. You can move through it and grow from it and have it change, particularly if it's a fear that you have that you really want to move through, that you don't want to have impact you any longer. So kind of squirreled a little bit there, but you can use a mental tracking of it like you would do in journal or writing as well, in addition to in conjunction with writing or on its own if you are really kind of focusing on a fear over time. All right, the next tip is practicing mindfulness. And this is particularly helpful if you use what you learned in your writing about your fears to become aware of them. And then when you're aware of them, you pay attention to feeling the symptoms of that fear. You sit down and think about what's happening and you just observe. And it can be really passive because observing that fear and that passive state can raise your self-awareness, and it prevents you when you go through that process of practicing mindfulness in that way. It prevents you from doing things that you would normally do when you're feeling the fear, right? It changes how you would normally move through feeling that fear. And so I think I just described this practicing mindfulness piece exactly by talking about reframing my fear of snakes. I just did it a little beforehand. Did it a little before the actual tip. All right, the last one, which we talk about so often because it has such an impactful part of your mindset, is getting out into nature. Take a walk outside. Being in nature is so calming. It reduces your stress. It changes our moods. And all of those things help shift our mindset, and they're going to get us out of they're going to help us get out of fear and anxiety. Even I always say this, even if all you can do is get outside for 15 minutes, it's going to help. So again, I'll put the link for that article in the show notes so you can read the whole thing. It was actually 6 strategies to overcome fear and anxiety. And I only gave you 4 of them, so you can check that out if you want to read the other 2. All right. Lastly, anxiety is another feeling that slows us down and can really keep us unable to make progress or keep our mindset positively focused. Anxiety is excessive and persistent worry, fear, and unease. I learned a few great exercises from a therapist several years ago about how to deal with anxiety. And so we're going to talk about a couple of those. The first one is really great to do with kids. You can do it yourself as well, of course, but it's really fantastic to do with kids because it's simple and straightforward. And that is Tell me 5 colors in the room that you are sitting in right now. Tell me 5 things that you hear right now. Tell me 5 5 people that you see, right? 5 things, 5 colors, 5 things you hear, anything. And I'll kind of explain how these exercises work once I've explained them all. The next one is a great one to do, particularly if you have a partner, but you can do it yourself. You can go through this process mentally. And that's asking questions. So if somebody's feeling a surge in anxiety, or they're starting to get really anxious, you can, and you often you plan ahead, right? You can have a trigger sentence. Trigger sentence is not the right word. You can have a planned sentence in advance, a safe sentence, maybe that's a better way to put it, so that the partner, if you are the partner and the other person is experiencing the anxiety and they say that sentence to you, you know that this is the safe sentence is they need you to begin the exercise. This can be particularly helpful if you're in a public place and the person needs you to help them lower their anxiety level, and they don't want to say, "I'm anxious right now," right? So the idea is that this exercise engages the short-term memory of the person that is experiencing the anxiety. So you would want to be asking questions. And one of the great ways to do this is to say, "Who was the first person you saw when you woke up this morning?" And they would answer, and you'd follow up with, "And what did their pajamas look like? Or what did they have on?" And they would say, "Pajamas." "Well, what color were their pajamas?" And and then what did you do after you saw them?" "I brushed my teeth." "And then what did you do after you brushed your teeth?" "I got dressed." "And what were you wearing when you got dressed?" And they would describe that. And if they just said, "I put on jeans and a shirt," "Well, what does your shirt say?" And they would tell you. "And well, what color was your shirt? And did you put shoes and socks on?" "And then what did you do after you got dressed?" "I went downstairs and had breakfast." "What did you have for breakfast?" Right? You get the point. You just ask a series of questions that engages their short-term memory. And it can basically be, what happened that day. It could be later in the day. It could be, when they started work, when they went to school, whatever it was. But you're basically engaging their short-term memory within that day. And the reason that you're doing this is that their brain, I'll get to this back. We'll do one more exercise and then I'll explain the reason for it. The third one is a really great exercise, particularly if you're experiencing anxiety and you are alone and you need a little more engagement with your brain than the 5 colors. And like I said, you're alone, you don't have a partner. You can do this with gum or food. And it's a sensory exercise where, let's say you have a piece of gum. You take the gum out of the package and you hold the stick of gum in its wrapper in your hand. And you feel the foil around the gum. I'm thinking of like Wrigley's or, that kind of. And you feel the coolness of the foil. And then you slowly open it and you feel the inside of, how the texture of the inside of the foil of the gum is different. You run your finger on it. And then you slowly take the gum out and you feel just the gum in your fingers. And then you place the gum just on your tongue. And you allow the sensation of the gum to be on your tongue. And then you can fold the gum up and just have the gum in your mouth. And you just feel it in your mouth. And then you take one chew, right? And it feels painful for me to explain it to you this slowly. It might even feel painful to hear me explaining it this slowly. You get the exact point of the exercise, which is you are so engaged, so present to every single step that your brain is focused in that present moment. And so you're starting to get a theme here, right? The reason that these exercises work is because each of them is engaging a part of the brain that's being used differently than when you're feeling anxious. And what this therapist told me many, many years ago is that those parts of the brain, the being present, that using and engaging the short-term memory, can't be working in conjunction with or at the same time as the part of your brain that feels anxiety. So that's why they're effective. Is you're shifting the part of your brain that's working, and it calms the anxiety down. Now, there are lots of these exercises. There's the 3-3-3 exercise, 3 things you can see, 3 things you can hear, and move your body three different parts of your body. There's, the iteration like 5-5-5. It incorporates breathing. We already know how important breathing is. This one is breathing in a really rhythmic way while you're focusing on 5 things to see, to hear, and to touch. Again, the purpose of any of these exercises is to engage a different part of your brain so that the anxiety isn't the focus that your brain is focusing on, and that it's calming the anxiety down. All of these tips and tricks can help you shift out of the limiting beliefs, the fear, and the anxiety, and shift you back into a more positively focused mindset. We know there are huge health benefits for keeping a positive mindset. So it's definitely worth practicing these tips and tricks, having them ready when you need them. This podcast is a valuable resource for anyone seeking to make meaningful changes in their life. I'm here to support you on your unique journey, offering guidance and encouragement every step of the way. There will be new episodes on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday every month. Please follow on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss any episodes. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode on how limiting beliefs, fear, and anxiety can impact your mindset. Remember, you always have a choice about your mindset. And it may take some practice learning to use the tips and tricks we talked about in today's episode. The payoff is transforming your life and taking your control back from the stream of constant negative. And it's well worth it. I promise. As we wrap up, here's the thing. I've made every mistake. I've literally been there and done that. It's one step at a time, and you'll get there. There's hope. You've got this. If you're struggling in a relationship and wondering if it might be controlling, you're not alone. Download my free PDF at locatecoaching.com/free gift to help you find clarity and confidence. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon.